What will your home rent for? You can ask 3 different tools and get 3 different answers. Today I'm going to discuss how we price your rental and why we think it's the most effective. You can go to Zillow and get a pricing, you can use Rentometer, get a pricing, and you can use another tool or ask a real estate agent and get another price. So how do you know if you've priced the home correctly? Here's how we do this. So here's a property managed. So this is a property we manage in DC. And if you go to Zillow, it's actually a 3-bed, 1.5 bath with an unfinished basement. Square footage looks right. Zillow is recommending $4,000 a month. Look at this. This is the same property in Rentometer, which is a free tool. You can just go to rentometer.com, put in the property address, square footage, bathroom, that kind of stuff, and it'll give you a good estimate. So what we have here, this actually showed up as a 1.5 bath and gives us a medium price of $4,700, average of 48, 25th percentile. So kind of showing you that the lower end of the market is 37 based on price, condition, that kind of stuff. And so that's where we get there. All right. So now let me show you actually the tool we use. Okay. So here's the actual tool we use. The difference between this tool and what you get from like Zillow's, Rentometer, other sites is we'll actually see what we're comparing this property to. Okay. So this is a 3-bed, 1.5 bath in Northeast DC. It shows us $4,000 a month. Confidence score 93%. Kind of explain that in a minute. It gives you kind of what different things, rent estimate, what Section 8 is paying in the area, zip high, all that kind of stuff, right? Days on market kind of just shows you that. You scan through this. It's going to break down square footage, everything here, 3-bed, 1.5 bath, how many comps it's comparing to. Now, the important things about these comps is these are recently rented comps. If you go down, you can look at each of these comps. Now we can start skimming through these. A 3-bed, 2.5 bath, so it's rented about the same price. Here's a 3-bed, 2.5 bath for $4,700. Now we can kind of see where they are located. So F and E are probably some of our better comps, and they're from $4,000 to $47,000. Now, knowing this property, we can also look at the trends for 1-bed, 2-bed, 3-bed, 4-beds in an area. Some information that's kind of generic, but it's going to give you information about what's going on in the market. But the important thing is, I know this property. I've been to this property. 3-bed, 1.5 bath. It's a really nice row home, but it's older. It has an unfinished basement. It's got parking in the back, but it's covered parking, but not the greatest parking. So in my opinion, it's going to be the lower end of the market here. And so this one's actually going to be pretty close, especially when you look at what Zillow is, what Rentometer is. Those are comparing it to a lot of maybe the nicest properties in the neighborhood, where this is going to be more of the middle to lower. It's a really nice house. It's got a lot of character. It's the original stuff. So some people really love that. So it's still going to rent for a good amount because location's fantastic. The house is in good shape. It's just not as updated. It doesn't have the new granite and all that kind of stuff. So I think this $4,000 is actually the best rent price for this property. And I think right now we actually have it rented for less than that. The tenants have been there for a couple of years. I think they're paying somewhere in the $3,800 range. So anyways, that is kind of how you can use the tools. But again, the key is to look at the comps, what it's comparing to. Why square footage wise, we're a little bit bigger. These might not include the basement square footage is probably actually pretty accurate. So we need to look at that year built. We need to look at that, all these different things. That's why it's not a exact number. It's kind of an estimate of what it should rent for. And then we really want to use the market. How many people are coming to look at it? Are they responding? What are they saying? What's their feedback? Because a tenant's been in a lot of properties. If they're looking, they're going to know the market as well as we are. And tenants are not willing to overpay. So that is the best way to do it. You want to get as close as possible to what the rent should be and then adjust accordingly. If it's priced right, it's going to rent in the first week. We promise. We have a guarantee actually when we rent a property. If you listen to us and if you go with that and it's not rented in the first 29 days, your first month's management fee is free. We are going to adjust the price as quick as possible and get it to where it rents as quick as possible. We want to look at the property, the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and the amenities compared to other rentals on the market right now that are active, but most importantly, properties that have recently rented. Why is recently rented more important than active? Well, if you look at active rentals, I can list my house for whatever I want. Say it's a 3-bed, 2-bath, I can ask $5,000. But if we look at what's actually rented in the last few months, that might be $3,000. So when you compare your house to an active rental that says $5,000, you might be asking way more than it's worth, and then the property's gonna sit on the market. So one thing we really look at is we wanna look at numbers, what's rented in the last 30, 60, 90 days. Look at the square footage, look at the bedrooms, look at the bathrooms, look at the location compared to where your house is and see what we're going to look at here. So then we can also look at amenities, right? Do you include utilities? Do you have parking included? Maybe you have an unfinished basement. And so we'll go through and we'll look at the other listings and kind of compare these 3 beds, these 2 baths compared to yours. Does this have a fenced yard? All that kind of stuff. So when you're looking at it, all that stuff doesn't add a straight up dollar value that's easy to figure out. It's more of what do we think it's worth because it has a fenced backyard, because the basement's finished, maybe there's another family room, maybe utilities are included. So those are things we really need to look into when we're giving you a rental price. The next thing we always recommend is we're gonna give you a number. What your mortgage is has nothing to do that. What your expenses are have nothing to do that. It's all about what is the market condition right now and what is a tenant willing to pay today. What we found is tenants do not overpay. If there's a 3-bed, 2-bath for $3,000, a 3-bed, 2-bath down the road for $3,500, and they're basically identical, they're not going to pay $3,500 unless this has a much better location or much better condition. The biggest thing in rental pricing and in sales or anything is the price has to match the condition and the location. If the location is great but the condition is not great, the price is going to come down. If the condition's amazing but the location is not great, price comes down. So you've got to find that where the price matches the condition and the location, and if all those things match, it's going to rent fast. One thing we always say is we put a property in the market, and let's say I tell you it's $3,000 a month, and you're like, hey, I really, my neighbors got $3,200, blah, 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 or I talked to a real estate agent, they said $3,200, or Zillow says $3,200. We're willing to try that. Okay, let's put it on the market. If we have no leads in, say, the first weekend, we know we're overpriced. Now, if we get a ton of leads in the first weekend, we might be underpriced. But the goal is to get it rented as fast as possible for as much as possible. So if we put it on the market and it's sitting with no leads, nobody's coming in, nobody's calling, nobody's looking at it, we know it's either the price, the condition, or the location. And if the house is beautiful, good. If it's a good location, we're good. We know price is too high. If maybe we're getting no leads, so after that first weekend, if we have a ton of leads and we've got a ton of showings and no applications, we typically know it's the condition. So it's a really good price for the location, but maybe there's something in the house that when a prospective tenant comes by, they're thinking this is not worth the $3,000. And so what we'll do after that first weekend, if we have a ton of leads and showing scheduled, I think we've hit the sweet spot. Because again, the goal is to get it rented as quick as possible. If we have no leads, nobody's looking at it, then we need to look at lowering the price. If say a few people apply or come to the property and they actually don't apply for the property, we need to look at maybe we need to spruce the property up, maybe some paint, maybe figure out what it is the property needs. Rentals are different. Sometimes rentals, we do a really good turnover and it's move-in ready, it's beautiful. Sometimes we'll have owners that say, hey, I want to hold off on painting for a little bit. I don't want to paint everything right now. And so we'll do some touch-ups or corner to corner, some painting of a wall. And we get showings but no applications. We need to look at condition. So these are the things we're going to take you through. So as we have the property on the market, you're going to get a report from us. We're going to send you a report every Monday that tells you how many leads we had that week and how many showings we had that week. And then we'll follow up with, did we get any applications? If those numbers are a ton of showings, a ton of leads, no showings, we've got to look into that. If we get a ton of leads, a ton of showings, and no applications, we've got to look at that. And so we're going to be going through this. It's not a science, massaging this, looking at this, trying to figure out actually what's going on, what's going to rent your property. Every property is unique. Every property has something different. Again, we talked about finished basement, not unfinished basement. I can think of one right now that we have a 3-bed, 2-bath, and it has no bathtub in it. Tenants, when they come through, they don't think about that in the listing, and then when they get there, like, hey, there's no bath. I have kids. I need a bathtub. And so that property is sitting vacant a little bit longer because no bathtub. Now that's a really hard thing to fix, to go in and add a bathtub, but that's something that we don't think about, or maybe you don't think about when you list the property, and then somebody comes through and says, hey, I actually need a bathtub. I've got kids that need a bathtub. So that's something else. Or they walk into it and they think, it's a row home and they want the basement finished, and they come into the basement is just concrete floors. And so now they're thinking, well, I thought I had another family room, now I don't. So these are the things we look at and discuss. So if you have questions about what you should rent your property for, the biggest thing is you want to look at a lot of information. We then want to get into the property, walk the property with you, look through the property, kind of give you ideas like, hey, all these walls are pink. You probably should paint these a nice neutral color that's going to attract the most tenants possible. Hey, the basement's not finished. Okay, that's fine. That's going to adjust the price a little bit lower than maybe the neighbor's house who has a full finished basement. Maybe you're not including utilities, or maybe you are including utilities. All of that's going to adjust your price up and down. And so what you want to do is you really want to look at the numbers. You want to compare apples to apples, your house compared to the house down the street, and then look at those amenities that could add value or take away a little bit of value. And then the key is, once it's on the market, is you want to adjust as quick as possible to get you the most showings, with the most applications, so you can get the quickest move in with the best quality tenant for the highest rent. And that is how you rent your property quickly. If you like this video, subscribe. You can watch more videos here. Thanks for watching.